to get where he is. So this is going to be a really great battle. And again, this is not a double elimination. So the winner moves on, and the loser has to either make it through that bracket next week or just go home.
Both these guys have had middling results on the verge of breaking out. They just have to piece together a good run. All you have to do is win your first 2 matches to be guaranteed an invite for the following week. Not to mention you also get points, but still a tall order. ZombiChow in the opening hand for Max does imply that he's trying to make sure that he's good against decks like Hunter.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't mean necessarily that he's playing a Death Rattle Priest. In fact, with Shadow Madness in his deck, I venture it's more of a control priest.
Yeah, Max last week brought a very heavy control style priest, wild power manters and all, so I'm not surprised that we're seeing more of a control type come out of him. Last week as well, he had probably the most success out of any decks with that priest. During the matches that made it to that blind pick phase, priest was his go-to pick. So he's definitely very confident in that hero.
Nice.
And definitely had a pretty high win rate last week.
Always lots of respect for players who don't have to be reliant on Hunters and Warlock.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not that those decks. I'm not bashing on them, Azumo. I'm not trying to take a dump on them. I'm just saying that it's cool to see diversity when people are saying, you know what, even if this deck is perceived as the strongest deck, I'm going to go a different route.
Yeah, well, it's pretty volatile right now too, with the nerfs to a couple of those key cards that were a part of those decks.
Well, yeah,
players are starting to experiment. Yeah, Soulfire especially, and the experimentation is pretty big, especially right now. Is sort of the time to do it. I mean, what do you have to lose? This is going to be the last time they're probably going to play on this patch. Most pro players are even playing Arena right now, so they're not even going to play with this patch with these nerfs. So
yeah, I partially take responsibility because I have like a bet with half of them right now of racing to 12 wins.
Racing to 12 wins. I think you won that.
I think I did win. I mean, some of them got really fast though within a day. Power Word Shield onto the ZombiChow. Max just taking some time to think about whether or not he wants to use it on this creature. You know, how valuable is it?
Yeah.
Lothar picks up Nerubian Egg, so that's more of a board-centric. And, you know, with the Dark Iron Dwarf, there's some good synergy.
Yeah.
I wonder how much early aggression or board control with, like, power does Lothar have? Is he running Bloodlust? Is he taking out that Doom Hammer? Does he have any other ways to fuel on the aggression? Because I love cards like Dark Iron Dwarf and Abusive Sergeant.
Yeah, and they're becoming quite popular as well. It gives great activators for some of the smaller tokens that wouldn't be of use to you otherwise, even just like totems or like the Nerubian spiders. Yeah,
because then totems become like full-on cards. The way hero power has always worked, that creates a token, whether it's Shaman or Paladin, always feels like it's half or maybe a third of a card because it doesn't really truly take on another one. But you essentially trade 2 mana for like a 3/1 or a 2/2, and it's actually pretty decent.
From a practical standpoint, the idea of totems attacking things is a little bit scary, but
it can be. It can be, especially if this token turns into a 4/4, which is a nightmare for Priest in itself. It definitely can be scary.
Yeah. So, putting that egg down just to, I mean, he's got a lot of activators in his hand already, so this is a pretty good choice.
Yeah, I like that he has a lot of versatile options too. He can Dark Iron Dwarf, of course, if an easy kill comes down, but he also has the availability of Flame Tongue Totem, or if he needs to go defensive, he has Feral Spirits. And the earlier you get them down, usually the better, because Feral Spirits has a lower impact late game against Priest.
Yeah.
They have access to so many AoE, they have the mana to do it, and they also have Cabal Shadow Priest to take one of those wolves. So you have to get them down earlier. So Lothar has a pretty decent early hand. It's all about how Priest responds, though. If they just have the Alkanized Soul Priest and the Circle of Healing, that's the ultimate nuke button that just destroys all momentum you've ever had.
Yeah, and you really don't want to get to a point where you're sort of all-inning way too early.
Look at that. Max holds onto the injured Blade Master, realizing that it's very easy for his opponent just to kill it off with the Rock Biter, which Lothar just picked it up. That's a decision that most people, they sometimes just rush. I mean, it's been 6 minutes so far, and we've gotten through 2 turns each. So these guys are making sure that their turns are well thought through before they have any other rush decisions that might cost them the game.
Yeah, I really like the way Max plays the Priest, and he's very patient with a lot of his decisions. And I think playing against the Shaman, you can really afford to do that because I mean, most of the board, you said it, you can pretty much clear it later in the game
Right.
Overloading the board with smaller creatures is sort of a liability against Priest.
You're not in a rush, right?
Yeah.
You have a lot of answers. The truth is you don't have too many threats.
Yeah.
You have, the Sludge Belcher is one of them. You might have Ysera, you might have, Sylvanas, but even then you have to be sure that your threats don't just get overwhelmed by what's on the board.
Yeah.
Lothar going to pop this egg anyways, and of course putting out that 4/4 is really powerful, but in this case it's going to be a 6 attack. If he baits out a Shadow or Death, that's going to pretty much take his opponent's entire turn, and then he can Feral Spirits or even Mana-Tide Totem.
Yeah, and it's pretty big too, getting out that Shadow or Death to make it, so there's less answers for those big creatures that the Shaman is inevitably going to put out later, like those Fire Elementals. So it would actually be pretty beneficial to him for Max to use his entire turn to be able to clear that Nerubian.
Exactly, because then you just give the initiative back to Shaman.
Exactly.
In fact, because of this, I feel like the Mana-Tide Totem is great, because then on turn 5, how do you deal with 2 3-health minions? You have to have Pyromancer plus a few other things to, like Holy Smite and Power Word Shield to clear it, and he's already used one. This is a very excellent play from Lothar, well thought out.
And it's really awkward too, especially because Shadow Madness is usually a great removal for those smaller creatures, but you can't use that for Mana-Tide or Flame Tongue, just because, well, they don't have attack, so even if you steal something, the Flame Tongue buff is, of course, going to go off of it. So he does have the Holy Nova, but again, against higher health creatures, anything more than 2, it's going to be rough. So this is a tough turn because he can't clear this Nerubian. He can't play that injured Blade Master because he's not going to be able to heal it, and even if he could, it would just be able to get cleared by that Nerubian pretty easily, which he definitely wants to protect that injured Blade Master. Ooh, and the
Reincarnate makes sense because you do have the Nerubian Egg, but it's a little bit late. Now it's an interesting series of choices as well. You can play on curve with the Dark Iron Dwarf, start trading down a little bit. I mean, the Flame Tongue Totem already served a little bit of purpose, and you still have 2 4-attack creatures out on the board. It doesn't feel very good because you give up your Flame Tongue Totem and your objective. I mean, you promised that Flame Tongue Totem since birth that you take care of it, but in this scenario, I think it's ready for bigger and better things.
Yeah, a lot of times when we see that Reincarnate as well, we see cards like Sylvanas also. The Reincarnate Sylvanas is such a fantastic combo to be able to pull off. And,
absolutely.
He's actually going to go ahead and sack that Flame Tongue Totem in. So leaving 2 4/4s, or, well, the Nerubian is a little bit low now, is really tough for a Priest to deal with. Especially at this point in the game, you know that his hand's not the greatest. He's got a lot of reactionary cards here, and some tough turns for Max coming up, but I'd say Lothar's in a decent position. He's played pretty well so far this match.
Well, and now you just have to present the way to respond, right? The Sludge Belcher is just better than trying to remove or even playing a 4/5 creature. The Injured Blade Master does actually have some good combos on turn 8, so...
Yeah, and, well, Injured Blade Master, I mean, it wouldn't be the worst choice here because he can heal it up and it puts it out of range of those 2 4-attack creatures.
Oh, okay, interesting. So he wants,
He knows that one Flame Tongue Totem has already been played, so it's going to be pretty tough to trade into it. And there is the Sylvanas, so that sets up some really great plays. It's sort of a 8-mana, 2-card mind control that also leaves you with the Sylvanas on the board. So
I think Lothar is playing Undertakers in this deck. It seems to just heavily lean towards the Death Rattle Shaman, and we've seen players be successful with this. The most prominent, of course, is Kalento in recent memory. And I personally like this. It's just that I do know and recognize that the board can easily be completely destroyed, and it's really hard to get back momentum. Not to mention top decking well, not top decking, but drawing the Undertaker late game is pretty painful.
Yeah, especially since he's already drawn into a lot of those Death Rattle creatures. Well, I guess just the egg, but... and a lot of times the Shaman can just run out of juice at some point in the match, and when they do that and they're relying on getting draws in the later stages of the game, and then an Undertaker comes out, that's the worst feeling in the world.
Absolutely. Now this is a cross your fingers for no Cabal Shadow Priest, but you get a lot of information from your opponent on this turn based off how he reacts, and Sludge Belcher drop is going to give Lothar a big sigh of relief because of what he expected.
So he's still on the coin here, and the Fire Elemental would be okay here, but it's still, you'd be wasting quite a bit of damage because it basically, you'd only be getting 1 damage effectively out of the Fire Elemental's Battle Cry. So I think Drake here probably seems like the right choice, but it also, that would be a little awkward too just because then he wouldn't be able to clear the Sludge Belcher that turn. And you'd be vulnerable to, well, some AoE, I guess.
Yeah, this is a little bit of an awkward turn. I think developing the Fire Elemental is okay.
Yeah.
In the back of your mind, you're still worried about like the possibility of Holy Nova, but that costs his entire turn, essentially, and Fire Elemental still lives. And Mad Tide already drew 2 cards. You don't have to be too greedy in the sense, like, I have to go all out to protect this totem. Again, you've made a solemn swear that you protect these totems, but sometimes they understand when they have to take one for the team. And this provokes such a strong response because now you're using Holy Nova. You already drew a card, or 2 cards off of it. The value off this totem might single-handedly give Lothar the win, because what happens is Shaman spends a lot of their cheap removals and spells in order to gain a board advantage, and the Priest clears it. And then they have like 5 to 10 cards, and you have like 1 to 3 cards. The fact that opposite is happening is a very poor spot for Max.
Yeah, so he is going to be able to clear that totem, but again, like you said, Fire Elemental is going to be left on the board, and this hand is actually really great for Lothar. He's got so many options here, and that Sylvanas Reincarnate is sort of an emergency button as well. If something big comes out that you don't want to have to deal with, you can steal it, and like we said, that Reincarnate, hey, that leaves you with another Sylvanas on the board, so it's just 2 threats that your opponent has to deal with. And sometimes it's something that priests just don't really expect.
Yep, absolutely. Lothar hoping for Healing Totem here. Spell Power Totem, not exactly the most useful since he doesn't have any spells, but it's not like Max is in the greatest spot either because he doesn't have optimal removal lined up.
Yeah.
He can deal with the Drake, he can deal with the Fire Elemental, but it's going to be costly if he does so.
Yeah, and it's going to be a pretty awkward turn regardless. Sludge Belcher doesn't feel good at this point just because...
Yeah. He's got 2 spell power, so a Lightning Bolt single-handedly can just destroy this really easily.
And he hasn't seen pretty much any removal thus far. He's seen 1 Earthshock, I believe, and that's been it. And, I mean, well, no. I was going to say, there might be a possibility that he cut Lightning Bolts from his deck. I've seen it happen before, especially when you put in quite a few cards like all those Death Rattles and Sylvanas plus Reincarnate.
I wonder if he's thinking about Sylvanas Reincarnate now, the viability of it, but I think he's also wondering about how he should most efficiently deal with this. Defender of Argus seems like it's an easy way to respond. Lightning Storm...
Oh, if he doesn't roll high, this could be...
I think it's okay. You can still trade into it regardless.
Yeah.
It's still just attack into the Drake. Unfortunately, he just loses out and takes a little bit more damage. It does open yourself up to a Holy Nova, but... At the same time, I think you're okay with this.
Yeah, he's already played 1 Holy Nova, so the chances of him having a second one, even the chances of him even running a second one, and also in that situation, that'd be a good read for you if you have to play the Priest deck in the future. Knowing that he runs 2 Holy Novas would be a pretty great piece of information, but he's really thinking here.
Well, I mean, he's just going to have to kill us off, totem up.
Yeah.
I think he might even hold off on a Feral Spirits. Depends on he wants to interpret his opponent's hand a little bit more.
Yeah.
And, you know, with the Taunt Totem, you actually don't have to do much, so I think holding on to Feral Spirits is fine. Yeah, it makes sense. It's like now it's a test to see if he has Pyromancer or Holy Nova, because this is a prime board to use it on. But he doesn't have it.
Yeah, I believe he's already played... Yeah, he played both Wild Pyromancers on the same turn earlier, so he's running out of options here. He's played 1 of the Holy Novas. He's going to rely, as this game goes on drawing into that Akanai Soul Priest, because... That's really going to be his only effective way to clear the board. He's got so many reactive cards in his hand right now, and no minions to buff with Power Word Shield is...
Just look at, again, how important that Mana Tide was. Also, Lothar got a little bit fortunate that he didn't roll the 1/1 Searing Totem.
Yeah.
That would have been like a Shadow Madness into one of these 1-health minions.
Yep.
So, definitely not a great spot to be in if you're Max. He doesn't want to use... he doesn't want to heal his opponent to try and give him more opportunities for him to have a stronger board. Does he have a choice, though? I mean, he's right now sitting duck. Otherwise, he passes a turn or uses Holy Fire on a target that he doesn't want to.
Yeah, Lothar has to sense the desperation right now when your priest opponent Power Word Shields one of your creatures. And then passes?
There's no rush for Lothar. It's like, well, I still have 10 damage on board. That's a 3-turn clock.
Yeah.
Maybe you can add 1 more thing to the board, like an Argus or a Flame Song. But
yeah.
other than that, just don't play anything else. There's just no need to overcommit. Just put him on a clock where you can kill him on the next turn, possibly.
Yeah.
I like it. And now it's back over to Max to see how he responds here.
You definitely don't want to get too greedy at this point. He's traded so well this game. I mean, there's so many cards that Max has just put out that have just died and haven't even traded into a single creature or only one. And so Lothar's been just playing super efficiently.
Max has a really cool play here. He needs to Shadow Madness his 1/1 first and then Holy Nova.
Yeah.
And then you can get past the Taunt Totem and kill off the Drake. This
yeah.
is actually really cool. You don't actually... There's the very rare scenarios where you use the Searing Totem to try and kill off your opponent's board, but this is what it is. And Lothar, you know, he understood that this is what he was expecting to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But this is why he kept Feral Spirits.
Exactly.
The Defender of Argus. Like, he has so many ways to load the board. I expect 4 or 5 minions next turn.
Yeah, and he knows that his opponent is running out of ways to be able to deal with this board if he couldn't deal with it last turn.
That's also a big draw, too. The fact that he can have more insurance against AoE just in case his opponent has one more form to get past it. Feral Spirits and the Egg.
Well, I found that the Egg in the late game actually is not as great as it would be earlier on because...
Think so?
Well, you can just heal the Egg. If you have the Arcanized Circle, which is the only option left, you can just heal the Egg and then still be able to clear the Nerubian.
Ah, you're right. You're right.
So
that's a good point.
The Egg is sometimes can be not as great as people might think in that later stages of the game, especially when we haven't seen either Circle of Healing or either Arcanized Soul Priest.
Well, he uses hero power, so even if he picks Arcanite up, can't do it. And now Sylvanas comes into hand, which almost certainly he feels he has to drop, but he hasn't seen Hex. He did see one Earthshock, but that's still 3 out of the, 20 cards or so Lothar's drawn this game.
Yeah, and, I mean, he could just... Next turn, Lothar could just steal that Sylvanas and still have a Sylvanas for himself. So it'd be double Sylvanas on his board. But he doesn't go ahead and lay it. Probably the smarter choice.
Okay, so Lothar again has to be wondering about the Arcanized Circle of Healing combination. That's the one way Priest can climb back into this game. So with that said, how do you progress here, Azumo?
I think you want to buff up that Nerubian Egg. Probably Defender of Argus on the Nerubian Egg because that'll protect it from that AoE. I think that'd probably be the best choice because we talked about the last turn. But he actually goes ahead and uses it on both these Feral Spirits. I'm not sure if that's...
It is a little bit surprising.
I think one
I think he wants to
egg.
put this outside of the Cabal Shadow Priest range as well.
That could be true.
He realizes that these 2/2/3 taunt minions have immediately more value than a 0/2 taken from him.
Yeah.
And that thing is more of a home insurance. Not to mention he has a second defender.
Yeah.
And in fact, he can actually buff another wolf with the egg the following turn, and then have a 4/5 minion. This is a big act of desperation.
Man. If you were Lothar here and you felt like being a little cheeky, you could just steal your Feral Spirit right back. But I don't think that's a very smart play. But I mean, Max is just in such a terrible spot.
Yeah.
Hasn't seen either Hex.
For sure. I mean, you can just push here.
Yeah.
A second defender here to push through the taunt, and then now you can activate the egg, so that way it's more resilient against the Arcanized Soul Priest clear, like you mentioned.
Yeah. He's still thinking through his turns because he doesn't want to overextend too much. He still doesn't want to get into a position where he's sort of running out of answers, but at this point he can do so many.
Never hit his Undertakers. This is actually humorous at this point.
Yeah.
Actually, the truth is we don't know if he's playing it.
Yeah.
But he has so many death battles, it's like, well, surely you have to be playing it.
Yeah.
Not to mention, by the way, that if his opponent, like, you might be wondering he just gave up Hex, what if he has just Sarah Light Storm? He still has Reincarnate.
Yeah. As long as you have another answer in your hand, you can be pretty liberal with your hexes. And I mean, he knows that he hasn't drawn on the second one or a second Earthshock. He's still got plenty of ways to deal with this. And
I love the restraint on not toteming as well. He realized he needs another slot just in case he needs a Sylvanas. And look! His opponent gifted him with another Sylvanas.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly enough, he actually has to still give up a spot. Otherwise, his reincarnated Sylvanas won't pop up. So he's going to have to suicide probably the Defender of Argus.
Yep.
And then take the Sylvanas. I know because I've made this mistake before where I tried to reincarnate Sylvanas.
I'm going to get 2 Sylvanas.
Right. And then I actually didn't get my second one back.
Just
because,
kidding.
It was a full board.
So. You get a little bit ahead of yourself when you get excited at cool plays.
Definitely, definitely.
Happens to the best of us. Me more than probably anybody else in the world. Well, probably going to be the play here.
At first, he's checking to see how much damage he has. Only a 9, so
yeah.
about half the chunk. Yeah, so the first play is to take it, but you have to make sure not to kill off your own Sylvanas in the process. Otherwise, that Sylvanas was worth it.
Yeah. Oh,
and
wow.
This is so devastating if you're Max. Your opponent has 2 Sylvanas. Even if you Akanai Soul Priest, he's going to take it. I think Max is making a small note that he's playing Reincarnate just in case he hits his Shaman one more time. But Lothar has played immaculately. And this is probably one of the best games I've seen him play in a long time.
Yeah, and Max, I mean, at this point, he probably knows that it's going to be pretty grim for him. He does have Akanai double circle. Well, he doesn't have the Akanai double circle, but if he draws into an Akanai, then he would have that. So maybe there's still a small chance, but it's looking very grim. At this point, I think he just wants to keep in the game just so he can see the rest of these cards, because this is a little bit of an interesting Shaman deck.
Well, this game should be over. He has the damage to push in for the final bits of damage, and Lothar starts off to a 1-0 lead. Well played. And again, you know, I was saying at the very beginning of the broadcast that I was looking at Lothar to start picking up his play. He's been telling me how he's been 4 positions and wins. And it looks like he's playing Twilight Drakes, Molten Giants, and Water Elementals. This seems like a hand mage that I've seen other people experiment with, including Hyped from Team Tempo Storm, or Crusher, who's a guy who's well known for trying out different wacky decks, some good, some bad, and making them really fun. So let's see Max take on this deck version here.
Yeah, this deck is actually really interesting. It's sort of like a ghetto handlock in a way, but I like it in the matchups that usually Mage is pretty poor in, and especially against Warrior. I think this hand Mage really does pretty well against Warrior in a lot of cases, because you have a lot of cards that do pretty well against it. Whoa, and actually Frost Nova and Ice Block as well.
So
in this deck.
It's going to be heavier on the freeze side of things.
Yep.
But you do have some minions. I wouldn't be surprised to see if he also plays Duplicate in this deck.
Yeah.
Because Duplicate with Twilight Drake actually is brilliant, the more you think about it. Lothar threw away everything here. He threw away his Big Game Hunter, his Force of Nature, and it makes sense. He doesn't need those combo pieces. But the Big Game Hunter is always like well, you know, I'm not sure exactly what mage it is.
Yeah.
And even if it is like a freeze mage with Alex Straza, I won't need it. I still have like 8 turns to draw it, so... Usually, if you know it's a freeze mage, you have to keep Big Game Hunter for Alex Straza, but in this case, he's playing it safe.
Yeah, and these early turns are a big indicator of what kind of druid it is. I mean, you said it earlier, it's pretty easy to determine what a druid is actually going to have. There's just so much crossover between cards and all the decks. Like Ancient of Lores and Force of Nature, at least one Force of Nature Saboteur is going to be in almost every deck, but... Okay, this is actually, he's curving out pretty nicely here.
He is. He still needs a turn 4 play. He also did not play around Cone of Cold, so if this was Hype's traditional freeze mage, where he was able to use Cone of Cold, pow, that'd be like 1 health less on your, on all of your minions.
Yeah.
But of course he doesn't need it. Now, Double Savage Roar is so powerful. He actually has like a really wild opportunity to put on some major damage in the next couple turns, maybe even kill him.
He can threaten lethal very quickly, especially with Druid of the Claw. You put that in charge form, and then he's already got the Force of Nature in his hand. Probably not going to even get a chance to use that in this game, though.
Do you use one here?
I would say so. Just push for damage as quick as you can. You know that. Yeah. I mean, that's 3 tokens on the board. That's so much damage that he's going to pump in already. Yeah. He's going to put him to 15 health, and that actually
It's lethal next turn.
Lethal next turn, yeah.
Oh, that's a little unfortunate that he's not able to...
Oh, no.
Ooh.
Could this game be over already?
Wait, actually, did we... I didn't count for the
6, 9,
hero power.
12.
So that's 6.
Game.
Plus
yeah.
8 is 14, 15 damage.
That's
lethal.
it. Wow, and the game is over.
Oh, no.
Just like that.
Oh, Max, his mouth just dropped open. He's like, well, what just happened?
That's the saddest.
Oh, no.
And Lothar knows that he's saying, oh, I feel gross right now, taking a sip of the best mug I've ever seen in my entire life. Wow. Well, looks like Lothar goes up to a quick 2-0 lead. Max last week actually clawed his way back from a couple of games where he was down 2-0. And a lot of it was off the back of his Priest deck. So this looks sort of similar to what Max was running, but with those 3 cards, it's kind of hard to tell what exactly is going to be in the deck. But
I think
Duplicate with a Loot Hoarder?
Yeah, Duplicate and Loot Hoarder heavily imply its secrets in combination. Just because you don't want to ever duplicate cards that don't give you value like that. And if you're playing Freeze Mage, you want to duplicate your Molten Giants, your Twilight Drakes, your your Water Elementals. Like, those are the targets you want. Versus in this deck, Duplicate is like a late game draw mechanism for your really powerful minions. So he's gonna be looking for Undertaker. Mad Scientist is great too.
Yeah.
Secrets are one of the worst things you can draw when you have Mad Scientist in hand.
Yeah. So looking at Max's hand here, it's pretty good. He's got a decent curve out. Doesn't have that many Death Rattle creatures to be able to buff up this Undertaker, but at the same time, I mean, Lothar doesn't really have any ways to be able to deal with an Undertaker if it starts to get bigger.
That is true. I mean, if he just simply buffs it here, then he just pings it down. Yeah.
But if you get 2 buffs on it, be a little bit tougher to deal with it.
Absolutely. He doesn't have a Frostbolt in hand. And the worst feeling is when you have to use removal spells such as your Fireball against the Undertaker, and you're like, what? Another secret in hand. This is one of the drawbacks of playing the Secrets Mage, in my opinion. But the nice caveat is that you can influence what secret you want based off playing something.
Yeah.
So, like, say he was under no pressure and he didn't need to use his hero power.
Yeah.
He could play like Counterspell because he wants to get, a Duplicate or Mirror Entity, which looks like this is Mirror Entity. By the way,
it is Mirror Entity. So there he goes, and that's probably not something that he wants to really steal. Mirror Entity.
It's okay though, right?
It's okay, but it's tough to get something good when you're playing against Hunter because they have so many little creatures that they're gonna play to test for that.
I mean, it challenges the board, which is actually enough.
Yeah.
And even though the Mirror Entity does cost 3 mana, it wasn't played from the hand. So he gained that 3 mana tempo effectively, even though this is a 1 mana creature. So Lothar still has a pretty decent position here. He can take out 4 power off the board. Love the sequencing, making sure not to take out the Mad Scientist too early, so in case it's a freezing trap, he loses some momentum.
So 2 duplicates in his hand. He's really going to have to control what is killed with that duplicate, and it shouldn't be too tough. But I think Sledge Belcher, since it's the only creature in his hand, but that's still I would say that's still a pretty good target against Hunter to be able to duplicate and have a lot of in your hand.
What do you think about that Chillwind Yeti in the Hunter deck?
I am a fan of the Chillwind Yeti. You said I believe we talked about it yesterday, and you said it's a good ladder addition. But I think it's good as either a replacement for Houndmaster or in combination with a Houndmaster, like 1 Yeti, 1 Houndmaster, because it allows you to curve out better, and if you don't have a beast synergy with the Houndmaster, it feels pretty terrible to just lay a naked Houndmaster on the board on turn 4 or whatever it is. Yeti just gets so much more value.
Well, I'm going to spoil some things for you. Houndmaster's always naked, at least in the card art. He's not wearing pants.
I guess so. Chillwind Yeti is as well.
Yeah, but he's got so much fur that it's like naturally clothed.
They're just free spirits. They don't care about flaunting what they got to the world.
So 2 routes of play here: go defensive or be more aggressive on the board, or at least aggressive with the cards in your hands. This Kirin Tormage, I like it. I like putting Counterspell down.
Yeah.
Try and present problems and disrupt your opponent. I mean, this is what Secrets Mage is supposed to do. If you just simply play on curve, you're nothing special, honestly. You're just another mid-range deck that you can see on Arena.
Yeah. And he definitely doesn't want to play the duplicate in that situation just because neither of these creatures are something that he really is going to value a lot. I mean, I guess the Kirin Mage would be okay because he could keep playing Secrets every turn, but...
Okay, so Max knows this isn't duplicate because he would have gotten rid of the Loot Hoarder.
Yeah.
So now Max can interpret if this is Mirror Entity or Counterspell. He's going to use the coin. I like it a lot. And now, because he sees it's not Mirror Entity, he's free to play Lothar, and that is going to be super disruptive.
Yeah, just a great read there, and you can tell that Max just really gave away what that was.
Never mind. I thought he was going to play Lothar, but I guess he's going to instead opt to save it for a more special occasion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he still doesn't know exactly what's in this deck. Well, I guess he sort of has a decent idea, but still saving the Lothar for a time where you might be in a little bit of danger or you have a little bit of a bigger board to protect. I mean, this is still a big board as it is, but spells are so crucial in Secrets Mage just because you have to play Secrets every turn or have to do something that disrupts your opponent's board or disrupts your opponent's play every single turn. So Lothar is a huge tempo swing usually, but I guess he values saving that quite a bit more.
You're okay sending this Secure Torn Mage back to your hand, right? Because it's like you gain back the 1 mana you lose with the secret you play anyway, so the tempo is actually not as bad.
You want to play that duplicate probably next turn just to well, actually no, because this Yeti's or this Sludge Belcher is going to be cleared out.
Well, sure, but
still, there's not really any other choice. I think
you have the flexibility, so to speak.
Yep. Ooh, 2 Yetis.
Yeah, so 2 Yetis. That implies no Houndmasters. Right?
Yep.
You don't usually play Houndmasters.
No, there's not enough room for that many 4-drops in Hunter, I don't think. Because what if you get a handful of 4-drops and you're running Undertakers? That's almost good game right there. So I think it's just as complete replacement for those Houndmasters.
So the Max just pondering about what's the most efficient way to play this turn. I do lean towards the Iron Beak Owl.
Yeah.
It is his last beast in the scenario he draws Kill Command, but I think dealing with the Sludge Belcher is too inefficient otherwise.
Yeah, he could still play the Yeti as well, which would fit pretty well on curve.
But then you charge the face, right? Then you put him down at 8 health.
Yeah.
And he still has to deal with the board. Are you worried about Flame Strike at all?
I don't think you really have the luxury of worrying about Flame Strike too much. I mean, you always got to be worried about it, but at the same time, he can't afford to really play around it because then he's just gonna not be putting on pressure, which is gonna be the death of him. Because he really just needs to put Lothar on the clock here.
Well, he is on a clock for sure. I mean, Lothar needs to kill him in the next 3 turns at the minimum. His opponent might be able to draw into more damage. Not to mention that he's got spells to lock him out, or he's got the anti-spell cards, which might lock him out in Lothar. I feel like Lothar is at like a 5% chance or less to win this game right now.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And getting his hand clogged with so many secrets early on, I'm sure was not what he wanted to happen.
No. That is the main drawback to this deck.
Yeah. Well, who knew that the downfall of Secrets Mage would be that you have just so many secrets? It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, well, the Explosive Trap will put him down to 2 turns, assuming he can even clear the board. He can, but that means that gives him 1 more turn, and he also dedicates his turn to removal here, so... This is a pretty nasty spot. He needs to draw, like he has to be playing life gain in here. Like, you know that new card in GVG that says gain 4 health if you control Secret?
Yeah, the Illuminator, I think? Something Illuminator?
Yeah, well done, man. That's what you need. Well, actually, never mind. He has a bow, so that's going to be game number 3.
Yep.
And now we go to the point where we transition to the blind pick stage. Max can play Hunter again. He can try his Mage one more time, and Lothar has access to his Shaman and Druid once more.
Yeah, so this is a pretty interesting dynamic once we get into this blind pick phase because there's a lot of mind games going on.
So I like the addition of Explosive Trap. That's certainly going to help Lothar a lot. Defender of Argus and Spectre Knight is a 2-card combination that gave Hunters a hell of a time for a while. But how confident does Lothar feel in this hand? I mean, if he had Innervate instead of Lothar, I would say keep this whole hand.
Yeah. This seems like a Druid deck that's sort of crafted to go against Hunters.
Yeah, but I think of course, you want to be able to keep in mind Hunters are available. There's no bans in this format.
Yeah.
You want your 2 drops, though. As much as this hand could work beautifully on paper, you need to go for your aggressive 2-mana cost creatures.
Yeah.
And Lothar has 2 games to get to it. That hand is pretty poor, to say the least. But Hunter only has a play for turn 2 at the moment, and that is a pretty nice draw. The only thing is that Lothar doesn't have a guaranteed second 2-drop.
Yeah.
You would instantly coin out Echoing Ooze if you had Haunted Creeper or another one. But he might hold on here and just pass.
I would save the coin for that turn 4 play, having a Keeper of the Grove or maybe even a Swipe, but most likely Keeper of the Grove for the turn 4 play. And Echoing Ooze can still be a little awkward if you play turn 1. It can be a little bit tough to do with some creatures. Like Haunted Creeper, you wouldn't even be able to clear a full Haunted Creeper if it was played with Echoing Ooze. and a hero power. But,
he's wondering about the chances of drawing into another 2-drop right here. And he's also wondering, well, what happens if I wait? What if he plays Mad Scientist or Haunted Creeper? If he plays Haunted Creeper, I can use my hero power to leverage. If he plays Mad Scientist, I still hero power. I may be able to pop a trap prematurely and then disrupt his tempo flow. Like Explosive Trap was just nothing more than a steady shot. Okay.
Yeah. And that's actually a really great point, because this is going to allow him to use half of an Echoing Ooze, basically, to get rid of the entire value of that Mad Scientist getting that secret.
Well, that was if he didn't draw another 2-drop, which he just did. Now it complicates things a little bit further, where it's like, well, if it is Explosive Trap, which we know is possible, do I want to toss out Haunted Creeper? I don't have a turn 3 play.
Yeah.
No Shade of Naxxramas is in the hand.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is tough. Because you want to protect that Haunted Creeper, but at the same time, you want to sort of put things on the board and play on curve, and on the off chance that it is a Freezing Trap, the Haunted Creeper would be obviously the right play.
I like Haunted Creeper here, personally.
Okay.
Even if he has Explosive Trap.
Yeah.
You still have the two 1/1s that appear afterwards.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any indication of what trap he wants. And more importantly, turn 3 is a little bit awkward if he had Animal Companion now, because you can remove anything that comes out.
Yeah.
Actually, no, if he attacks the 1/2 instead. But either way, the Haunted Creeper increases the chances that you can deal with the turn 3 play.
Yeah, and he can actually control which trap he gets here from his Mad Scientist if he plays this Freezing Trap. So he can go for an Explosive Trap.
Right. He's really confident in his ability to get an Explosive Trap.
Well, if he only runs one Freezing Trap, then he knows already that it's going to be an Explosive Trap anyway. So that could be a possibility.
So then, what do? Do you attack with 2 of the minions first, kill off 1, and attack with the last? So you use your 2 Echoing Oozes to attack the face first?
Yeah, I would do that. Because then if it's Explosive Trap, you're still putting on that extra 3 damage. Doesn't seem like a lot, but at the same time, I mean, 3 damage could end up being the difference between killing your opponent or not. There's no reason not to attack. He actually just doesn't even clear the Mad Scientist at all, just forcing...
Right, he had no turn 3 play, so he didn't have a bow, right? You don't have to worry about giving extra charges and whatnot. So he is playing a Defender of Argus as well. That is interesting.
Wow, okay.
That is really fascinating to me, because I've seen this being played by Kranich in the BlizzCon World Championships.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really clever replacement for Houndmaster, because it's about the same value.
Yep.
But he's playing both that and Yeti. So I think it's purely designed to win a lot of the mirror matches, because taunts can really decide how the 100 damage translates, and then you can get an early edge.
He's playing Black Knight as well. So there's a lot of tech cards put in there, a lot of cards that a lot of hunters aren't able to fit in, but he does it.
Of course, we overlooked that he has Keeper of the Grove to silence the Mad Scientist as well. So that was another contingency play here.
He actually has both Keeper of the Groves in his hand right now as well. Deciding on how he wants to clear this board here.
Yeah, I think
just going face.
Just again, he's the one being the aggressor, because he's the one threatening Savage Roar, right?
Yeah.
I love this. This is good recognition from Lothar to say, you have to deal with me. And the only question is, does he want to use Innervate at all, just to keep his Keeper of the Grove a little bit safer? It's it's stronger health and body. What can his opponent do on turn 5? You can bow and hero power if you drew it.
Yeah.
I think he's thinking about protecting his Keeper a little bit here.
I think this is the right choice to clear off this Mad Scientist. And he doesn't draw on that Savage Roar, but he's forcing that Hunter into the situation where he's the one that has to play the control style that you talked about a little bit earlier. And if he's doing that, then you know that he's not doing damage to face. I mean, we're getting pretty late. Well, not pretty late. This game has been pretty slow paced, but turn 5 and he's still at 25 health, which is very good for a Druid.
This can be considered the beginning of the late game.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how fast paced the matchup can be.
Some might even refer to it as the mid game.
Some might. Okay, so this telegraphs Explosive Trap. There's no way he'd play Freezing. The only alternative that it possibly could be is Snake Trap, just to bait out a trade.
Yeah.
And he's going to see his Explosive Trap, but I think he won't be too discouraged.
Yeah.
He might play Spectral Knight. He might even play Spectral Knight and hold. He might attack and then play a naked Spectral Knight, so that way the chances of Unleash the Hounds biting him is a lot lighter.
Yep.
But if he plays Spectral Knight and holds, then Savannah Highmane's much weaker.
Yes. And I mean, Savannah Highmane is sort of the natural progression of things. You know that the Hunter hasn't had too many really impactful plays early on. So you know that his hand is full of more situational drops or later game drops like the Savannah High Main. So maybe just throwing down the Spectral Knight, passing the turn, and keeping those creatures alive to be able to deal with those drops is could be the best choice. And it always feels terrible just losing 3 creatures like that just for nothing, just to preserve 2 extra health on your Spectral Knight, possibly.
Yeah, and Spectral Knight still can't be dealt with Kill Command. He chooses to pop the secret, and unfortunately, oh, he actually might Ancient of Lore here as well. Actually, I didn't think about that because I forgot about the Innervate draw. Yeah. And actually, considering he's going to Ancient of Lore, absolutely the right play here to pop the secret then.
Yep.
We should have thought about that a little bit earlier.
Yes,
but as soon as he popped it, I was like, why? Why? It's like, oh, yeah, he has Innervate.
Yeah, he used 1 Innervate last turn as well, so I kept thinking in my brain, oh, that Innervate that he has in his hand doesn't exist. He used that last turn. Not even thinking the possibility that, hey, maybe he drew into his second one.
Exactly, man.
Yeah, so a High Main feels pretty natural here, but at the same time, clearing that Ancient of Lore off the board seems pretty enticing as well with the Web Spinner. Or could even, well, I don't know. There's actually a lot of options. Freezing Trap, putting out a 9-mana Ancient of Lore, but that also could give your opponent that could be used as sort of an emergency heal in the late game. It's an entire turn.
Oh, man.
But sometimes that's all a Druid needs.
That feels so passive and weak and reactive. You use up a Kill Command here. Yeah. Max is starting. He wants to control the board before he gets his High Main down.
And that's sort of just Max's playstyle in general. You saw how he played his Priest, very conservatively, very control-heavy, very reactively.
Yep.
And you could see that translate into all the other classes that he plays as well. Even the Mage, when he lost super quickly, he didn't really hesitate in just playing it really slow. And even after he saw that first Savage War and got put to 15 health, he immediately just said, you know what, I'm just going to stay calm and just play this Water Elemental on this empty board. Or, well, empty on his side. And you can really tell Max's playstyle coming out in just every class that he plays.
I think Lothar is really wondering about how to play this turn because he has Force of Nature now, which gets him a lot of damage. Just in pure damage alone, he's got 14 spells-wise. So if he plays Spectral Knight here, which I'm in favor for, he can start piecing together damage. And he can use Force of Nature to bait out a Freezing Trap, which he's almost certainly that this comes out to. You don't want to play Naked Explosive Trap because your opponent could just hero power it down.
Yeah.
The only exception that this might be Snake Trap, but he's about to test for it. And the best part is he was trying to hold on to this Keeper because he knows the inevitable High Main might be coming.
Yeah. That's going to be a little bit easier for him to deal with now. And drawn into the Shade, that's not the best. That's probably one of the worst he could have drawn into this time.
You think so?
Well, I guess it puts another token on the board for being able to proc that Savage Aura, but at the same time, it's a little bit slower, and you can tell that Lothar's been trying to play really fast this game, and just by going to face every time, when he could have traded in his minions, not playing around, Unleash the Hounds, it seemed like he was trying to play a little bit faster, but he really wants to get to those Savage Roars quite a bit quicker because...
True. But it's still 2 turns away. He already uses Innervates. I think the next Rammus actually fills out the curve pretty well. The fact is, if he picked up a 2-mana cost minion, it doesn't fit anything, but like he'll be floating a mana. So no matter how he chooses to use this turn, I mean, I'm not even opposed to like using Keeper of the Grove, Silence, and then like Shave next Rammus and then just pass.
Okay.
A Force of Nature to pop the Freezing Trap is also viable here if you want to play as a defensive game. But it's like we said, I think he wants to get in the damage.
Yeah.
So I think just charging face and making Hunter play control again is like perfectly fine.
Yeah, almost ropes out there, but puts him into perfect.
Oh, he also has another charger. That's funny. I forgot about Freezing Trap putting the Tree Ant back in the hand.
Yeah.
So if he draws Savage Roar, he does have a charger to boost its damage a little bit.
Yep.
That's funny.
And 14 health is sort of that sweet spot. He doesn't have that second Savage Roar in his hand, but again, or the second Force of Nature or Savage Roar in his hand, but that threat, just that threat looming 2 turns from now, is enough to force Max to, like you said, keep playing that control style, keep making sure that he keeps the board clear and everything. So really like this style of play here.
He's got so much damage. He's got 13 damage this turn.
Yeah.
The key is he has to make a balance. He has to keep a beast in his hand so that kill command becomes relevant. He's gonna trade. Oh man,
that's
Max. Exactly what Lothar wants. Oh my goodness.
That is Max in a nutshell, right there.
Okay, well here's also where things become slightly inconvenient, by the way, because there's a scavenging hyena which gets buffed by the kill here. So if you kill off the Savannah Hyena first, so you're gonna have to actually swipe the
hyena.
The hyena.
Yeah, the hyena came from the web spinner.
Yep. Or you can Wrath and Hero Power and take the damage from, but I think you'd rather not.
Yeah. Because that still would be a lot of damage facing on board as well.
Sure.
Even just a Yeti. 4 damage from a hunter can be a lot, especially at this stage in the game where you know that they can put out a lot of bursts in any given turn.
Absolutely. But how much is he afraid of combo? I mean, at this point, you can't play around it. So
yeah, so you just got to go.
Just go.
That's why I think last turn it probably would have been even better to just go. How much damage could he possibly have done that turn? I mean, if he had... Well, double Savage Roar would have killed him, yeah.
Yeah, I think in the back of your mind, you're contemplating about Savage Roar.
Yeah.
The one thing that is worrying in the back of Max's mind, there are no beasts in his hand.
Oh, yeah.
Playing control here feels unnecessary, but I think he's also worrying about other possibilities. Maybe it's not just combo, but what if he just had Druid of the Claw and Savage Roar? How much damage is that? That's
9 damage.
That's 12 damage?
Oh yeah, with the keeper still on the board, yeah. Well, that's pretty scary.
That is tense, but even if it's 12 damage, he's alive.
Yeah.
So it's just about wondering about, like, is this killing off this keeper worth it at all? And I think it's not, unless he just has the pure combo itself, which he already used one piece.
Yep.
Now, you already know he has the Treant, so if he uses the Treant Savage Roar, that's 10 damage.
10 damage.
Nope, 11 because the hero power.
Yeah. And then he would actually have enough mana for like a swipe or something as well in that case.
He'd be 1 short, because it's 3 now.
Oh, yeah.
Which, by the way, he ends up getting the Savage Roar, so...
One more piece, and he's very close to drawing it into lethal here, but at the same time, he's facing a scary board right now.
Yeah, but he can stabilize so easily. He can Wrath, swipe, and he can Wrath for 1, swipe, and play Shade of Nax Rammus.
Oh, yeah.
And that's so beautiful for Lothar. And I feel like Max needs a big outer. He's got the runner of Savage Roar back-to-back. Lothar is going to close out this game unless Max can find a way to do something big now. He needs Deathwing off the top or Ragnaros.
Yeah, and those are probably not likely to be seen in this deck. Whoa, Lothar! Could keep him alive. That's going to keep him alive for an extra turn.
That might actually help him a lot.
And that's quite a bit of damage that's going to be facing on the board that Lothar is going to have to deal with, and that's not the easiest creature to be able to deal with. Echoing Ooze, though, is great with those Savage Roars, but again, he wouldn't even need it generally because he's got both of them.
It's fine, though, because this Treant actually does come to value here. Now Lothar can kill off this Lothar, play Ancient of Lore and heal.
Yep.
And then still have a 5/5. It's actually stronger than Shade of Nax Rammus. I think he's also calculating on the off chance he has any kind of killing damage, but he doesn't in this case.
Yeah. I don't think there would be any possible way that he could have killing damage. He's already used one of the kill commands.
Sure.
Yeah, this is the best course of play here.
So, I think he's calculating how much damage does his opponent have. He still has one possibility of kill command.
Yeah.
Say if he rolls Huffer off of Animal Companion. That's 5, 9, plus 5, that's 14, plus hero power, that's 16.
Still wouldn't be able to kill him, and I think that's best case scenario.
Wow, so he armors up instead and attacks Fearless.
Yeah.
But there's a third card. What if that third card was like Eagle Horn Bow?
Eagle Horn Bow? No, that would be
not enough mana.
Too much mana. Yeah, that'd be 11 mana he would need for that. No, even more. Oh no, that'd be 11 mana.
How often are you going to see a Treant with double Savage Roar that was returned by a Freezing Trap kill off the game? This is actually a little absurd. Max is out of this tournament.
Yeah.
Lothar is going to win.
Not very often, but hey. That's a great use of Force Nature early in the game. There was a lot of plays to be made that turn, but being able to proc that Freezing Trap with that Treant, not only is it a great way to proc the Freezing Trap, but it also sends that back to your hand to give you that little bit of extra oomph that you need for later in the game.
Man, he values his health so much, but it's not going to matter. Lothar drew a lot of the right cards at the right time. Great curve and strong play overall this entire series. He's going to go to the top 4. And now that Max is out, that's yet another player who was in the top 2 previous week who just fell a little bit short of being back for week number 2.
Yeah. Max, though, I mean, he had a great run in the couple weeks that he did play. He still has quite a bit of points from last week when he placed top 2. But Lothar, he played exceptionally well all this series, all 4 games in this series, and really impressed with him. Looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring us for the rest of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So that wraps up